everyone. Welcome to It's Your Money. I'm Joanne Morgano, and I'm joined by my co-host, Martin Salzman. We are both financial advisors and have over 51 years in financial planning and overall wealth management. Our subject today will be financial and estate planning for children with special needs. I'm going to turn it over to Martin, as I always do. We're going to talk about the market, and then I will introduce our special guest.
Yes, and thank you, Joanne. We have a great guest today, and I would say a foremost authority in this area, so I'm looking forward to hearing her comments. But I want to start out and just talk a little bit about the markets. The indices are all, again, seemingly hitting highs. And the Dow crossed over 34,000. The S&P just crossed over 4,200, and NASDAQ over 13, almost approaching 14,000. We've had oil prices edging higher for a variety of reasons, which we've touched on. You know, some of those political, some of it's supply and demand. We've had interest rates on the 10-year backing off a little bit. So once again, if you are in the process of considering whether to refinance or not, my God, this is really the time. I mean, strike while the iron's hot. You know, I know our mortgage friends are all telling us.
And home sales are at the highest.
Home sales are blistering. They're blistering.
Okay.
And
well,
you know,
highest and blistering have two different meanings.
Yeah, so you know, in my travels around some of the retirement communities, I remember a year ago, I literally would count some 40 signs of all the different realtors. I went through one of the biggest developments in Toms River. I only counted 4 signs. So the supply is lacking, but the demand is there.
And that's driving up the prices for the sellers. Not good for buyers. Good for buyers if you get a mortgage.
Yeah. And here's an interesting thing too. Gold now has crossed over $1,900 the ounce, and part of that is because the U.S. dollar, it just keeps losing value. Yeah, so there's an inverse relationship here going on. So gold is over $1,900 an ounce. Silver is now over $28 an ounce. So those are the indices and some of the things going on right now. In some of the other hot button topics in the news, it really is about unemployment right now, or employment, I should say. You know, we can't seem to get enough workers. I don't know about you down here, but I go into some restaurants, every one of them is looking for cooks and waitresses.
So why is that?
Oh gosh, I think because people are getting so much money, it's become a disincentive means, if you will, more un-American in my opinion. Rather stay home than work and make a living. We weren't built on that in this country, you know. Yeah. But
some states, excuse me, are doing away with the enhanced benefit of $300.
They are
to motivate employees.
I think there's like
back.
22 of them, right?
Yeah.
So that's a factor right now. Coming in July is a child credit. So if you have a child who's up to age 6, you can get $300 a month per child. Think about that, you know?
That's a lot of money.
I mean, that's a lot. And if the child's over 6 and below 17, it's $250. So, you know, that's a tremendous amount of money, you know? And look, here's my feeling on it. If we were a country that had a surplus, I would say, look, we just came off this pandemic, let's help people. But we are in a bad place. We are just giving money out everywhere. Our deficit is larger than ever before, and we keep giving handouts and handouts and handouts. And I don't think it's being pinpointed, and I think that's part of the problem.
I don't think it's being reported correctly, and so I think there's always that spin with the news media. So we've talked about that too.
All the time.
So let's move on. Are you ready?
You know, we can move on because, you know, I was going to touch on inflation, but I really believe you're right. I think, you know, the topic is way too important. So let's get to our guest, tremendous guest today. So go ahead.
Okay, so our guest today is Christine Matus of the Matus Law Group. She is the founder of this group for over 2 decades and has served residents in New Jersey in the matters of estate planning and real estate law, in addition to general estate planning. But her real specialty is in estate planning for clients with family members with children who have special needs. And this is a very, very specific area. She is a member of the Board of Trustees of the Ocean County Bar Association, the Asian Pacific American Lawyers Association, and this is Asian Pacific Month, and the American Bar Association, in which she serves on its advisory panel. Christine is a strong believer in giving back to her community and has been involved in several pro bono work projects like Mary's Little Children and Salatine Light Community. So Christine, I want to thank you for joining us.
Oh.
It's a pleasure to meet you.
Welcome.
Thank you so
welcome.
much. It really is my pleasure. I'm so excited to be here. Thank you.
Oh, that's great.
I was excited to interview you, and we're so glad we got you on. So, our audience loves to hear about why our clients became who they are in their profession. So, what motivated you to be a lawyer, and how did you find this special niche?
Well, first and foremost, I always like to share with people I'm a wife and I'm a mom. And that is really one of the big motivators of why I do, of what I do. They are my mission. For those who may not know, I have 2 kids. My youngest born with Down syndrome. And as a result, I've decided to dedicate my team, my firm, to helping those families who may have a loved one with a disability, a special needs. And with my oldest daughter, who's typical, I love the banter. I love how they learn from each other. And whatever I learn, I've been able to share with the families that I help. So that's really my big motivation, my big motivator of what I do.
Wow. So that explains it, sure.
Yeah, and you know, what I've always felt is that I don't have clients, I have families, I have friends that have entered into my circle.
Okay.
And my whole team and my whole firm, they really have that same mission in mind. All of them understand who we're dealing with, how we deal with it, and what are the unique issues that we have. And we've been able to bring some great ideas, some great tools to help our families.
Yeah, so Christine, you practice in Ocean County, specifically in Toms River, and I know you do other types of legal work for people, from real estate and simple wills as well, and maybe I'm missing something, but I know this is your mission, and now I understand it even better, you know, because we are neighbors, okay, in Toms River. But pertaining to special needs, there's always these mistakes. There's mistakes that people make. They think they're doing the right thing, trying to protect this child who might have autism or Down syndrome or some other issue that, you know, maybe I'm not touching on, and they want to put money there for the person. They want to do things for that person, and in a way, it could come back and bite them.
Right.
Can you share with us just some of those mistakes, common mistakes, and things to avoid?
Absolutely. I think one of the things that I'm always surprised about is you just don't know what you don't know. There's a lot of information out there, but trying to find out what's the right information and what fits for your family is really a big deal. So what we've always been trying to do is try to explain to family what the tools are, what's available out there. There are really a lot of nice tools. So one of the things that some families are concerned about are benefits. Public benefits. When we have a loved one who's disabled or who has special needs, a lot of times they will probably be looking into something called Medicaid or SSI, Social Security, Supplemental Social Security Income. Those are benefits based on assets. A lot of times, you know, our loved ones may not be able to have a lifestyle or work independently and to support themselves. So we look to these benefits. But these types of benefits are only eligible to people who have a low amount of assets, $2,000 or less. It's such a low figure. They haven't
Very
even
low.
changed that figure in decades. I can go on and on about why that's upsetting. But in the big picture, that is what we're dealing with. So when we have assets that low, there's a lot of concern. And a lot of the ideas that people have to try to have their loved ones eligible, they can be great ideas, but when we start to implement them, just bad things happen. So for example, if we have a custodial account, a lot of our families are thinking ahead. And they're thinking, you know what I'd love to make sure is that we start our child on the right foot financially. So we have custodial accounts. But unfortunately, if we have a loved one who has special needs, who's disabled, these custodial accounts could count against them because it's typically theirs, right, Marty and Joanna?
Yes, and
Right,
you know,
right.
you're right, because in a custodial account, you're using the child's social security number.
There you go.
So in effect, they're the owner, it's just that the parent is the custodian or guardian of that particular account.
Yeah.
So you're saying if the assets go over $2,000, it might preclude them from getting certain government benefits.
Absolutely, and it's that's one of the more common things that we see.
$2,000?
Oh yeah,
I know.
So that's a common mistake. So we ask families, take a look at what you have. Do you have a custodial account? Are we dealing with a loved one who has special needs and who's disabled? We need to revisit this. That's the one.
Yeah. And is there another two?
Yeah, there's a few more. Retirement accounts and life insurance. A lot of times, again, we're thinking ahead, and we are thinking that if something should happen to us, we would make sure that our loved one is, again, being set in the right foot financially. So we probably will name them as the beneficiary of our life insurance, beneficiary of our retirement accounts. But again, if they are disabled, if they're special needs, and we are looking for them to maintain or become eligible for Medicaid or SSI or other type of public benefits like that, these accounts will be a problem. So we need to revisit that also.
Can I just ask this? You said SSI. Is that Social Security?
Supplemental Social Security income, yeah.
Okay.
So, and it's additional income that comes to our loved ones every month.
Right.
Right now, it's about $863 a month, but that's important money for them. And to not have that benefit is a big problem. It's
And
a big
that's not
financial.
considered a disability, like Social Security disability. This is considered a supplement income.
Exactly.
Right.
Okay.
The big difference is that SSI is considered a means-tested benefit, meaning they have to have that certain amount of income level. Whereas Social Security disability, that's based on of where you are in life, that you've worked, right? Has nothing to do with your assets,
I see.
but your work credits, as they say.
Okay.
So that's a big difference, right? So if you have life insurance or retirement accounts, we want to make sure we understand how are these benefits being given to our loved ones. And if they're given to them individually, again, that's going to be a problem. And there are tools available, Joanne.
So
and
tell
Marty.
us
Yeah.
what these tools are. Would it be
So-
called a special needs trust?
Yeah, there's
Okay.
a tool that's called a special needs trust. It's a financial tool. And there are really three main types. But what this tool does is that it creates somewhat of a shelter. I like to think of trust as a box. So we create this box, and we can put certain things in this box, and it will be shielded from, say, being ineligible from these public benefits.
So there's certain things, would you say it's money?
Yes,
Okay,
absolutely.
is there something else that's in the
You
box that
can
we don't know
put
about?
you can put houses.
Okay.
You can put but most of the things that we're looking for are liquid assets that we're putting in
I
there
see.
that this loved one would probably utilize for themselves. There's a lot of requirements, and there's things that we have to be aware of how we use this money, but that's a tool. And I'm always fascinated when I hear families that have never heard of this tool, and I'm excited because it's an option. It's something that we can
And
consider.
you could help them.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Because the old way used to be to disinherit the child. They used to say, well, then we'll just leave them out, and we will pray that the other loved ones will take care of them, or we start putting assets in other loved ones' name and saying, remember, that's really for so-and-so.
Right.
But that, you can all imagine, has just such a big knot of problems
Oh,
that
yeah.
could happen,
Yes.
right? And so we never really recommend that. We recommend that let's visit this tool, the Special Needs Trust. And one of the things I do want to point out, at the end of 2020, there was something called the Secure Act, and I
Yeah.
bet that both of you knew that. And typically, when we have a special needs trust created, you can say that, hey, can we make that a beneficiary of a retirement account? And you can. And before the end of 2020, we used to tell a lot of clients, I really would hesitate to do that because, as both of you know, there's going to be a time frame when they could use that money. There's going to be a time that they had to be forced to do it. And so we would push people saying, I really wouldn't put your trust as a beneficiary to retirement account. But with the Secure Act, that's been an exception. It's been a good thing that we've been telling clients that you could really look at it because it's an exception. When we have a retirement account and we create a trust, and that trust is the beneficiary, in the old days, and now with the Secure Act, there was a certain amount of years that had to be cashed out, but not if the person's disabled. So that's a good thing. There's no requirement for that. So that's been a big plus. We've loved that.
So Joanne asked you about, retirement and insurance and that, and I want to ask you a very important question about insurance, but we have to actually take a break because we have bills to pay. So we have to take a break, and we'll be right back.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. But it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello? That's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
Welcome back to It's Your Money. Our guest today is Christine Matus, and she's an attorney that specializes in special needs trusts for children that are disabled. Our last question was just started by Martin. So
Yes, and we have a foremost authority with us today, so it's great. My question was a follow-up on your question, having to do with insurance, because, look, if I had a child that, had a special needs, whether it's autism or something like Downs, I want to make sure that if I'm not here, they're going to get a bag of cash, and I'm going to make them my beneficiary. But based on what you're saying, that could be a tragic mistake because now they're not going to get the income the government supplements. So can you touch on that? And what do we do?
Absolutely. So again, a good tool to consider is called a special needs trust. And what is important that we have to find out, well, how do we fund these trusts? There's things that we'd like to put in the trust. One of the most popular ways that we recommend is life insurance. Life insurance is a great way to fund a trust because if you have life insurance and you name your loved one singularly, individually, as the recipient of that life insurance, as a beneficiary, it will throw them off their benefits. So if you have a trust, you can make the trust the beneficiary. So I'll give you an example in my situation. For my daughter, we have her trust, and the trust is the beneficiary for a lot of things. So we don't have anything in her name individually because we want to make sure that she's eligible for these benefits. So that's a big way. And I have to say, when we have these life insurance, we really should look into making sure that if you have a partner, you have a spouse, make sure the insurance also takes care of them. I know we also focus on our children, but if there is a surviving spouse, they have to be able to manage and take care of the child and the family. So make sure they're also named as a beneficiary in one form or the other.
Okay, Christine, sometimes parents don't realize children are disabled or until maybe they're a little bit older. These special needs don't really arise sometimes until they're in school. So they've already started saving for 529 plans. How would that work, and how do they shift that? Do they put the 529 into the box, into the trust? And
it's very tricky. So 529 plans, again, could also be looked at as one of the custodial accounts because that becomes the child. And so it's been a challenge. If we know as early as possible, one basic solution is to remove the child from that 529, and hopefully, depending on where it is, right, because there's so many different kinds of plans out there, hopefully it has that flexibility where you could either put another child in that plan or use it for other means except for education. Again, I would really look into, if you're looking for a 529 plan, look at how flexible it can be. There's so many out there. So it's really important to go to people who can really help. It's not, I don't think it's good enough to look online yourself. You really need the experts, people in your position.
So for our viewers' benefit, we mentioned 529 college savings plans, and that's basically what they are, where the owner of the plan is the parent in this case versus that of the custodial account. And the child is the benefactor of the 529. So if the child doesn't go to a higher education and you want to take that money out, you could be penalized 10%, or you can transfer the 529 to another child.
different beneficiaries.
But in this particular case, you're saying get the money out of that child's name.
Absolutely, because
Okay.
it will count against them, unfortunately. It
Okay.
will. There are other tools besides a trust, and there are things called the ABLE account, Achieve a Better Life Experience account. That has been a very new thing. It was in 2018 that they enacted this new type of tool. It can work similarly like a trust. However, it's used like a checking account. And it also is a great tool because a lot of times we would like to have more flexibility of how to use the money. The trust has a lot of rules and has some restrictions, whereas an ABLE account has a little bit more flexibility of how you can use the funds in that type of account. But that has really things you need to be aware of. An ABLE account, you can only put in $15,000 a year. You can only have one. And then once you get to a certain amount, like $100,000 in there, you start to lose benefits. Once you hit $200,000, you definitely lose almost all your benefits. So you want to manage that. Whereas a trust is unlimited, you can have a number of trusts. Grandma wants to pick up a trust, you want to create a trust, no problem. And you can put in as much as you want. So you do have to have a balance as to what tool is best. And that's what we'd love to do to help clients, just to educate them so they know what's the best tool for their family.
So you brought up about grandparents, and in most cases, would the grandparents do a special trust or just do it in your experience? Because obviously it's more legal fees for a family, right? Or so when the trust is being set up, do you find that families have conferences with each other because they can put it all in one big box, or you find that a grandparent says, no, I want to do it specially? On the exclusion?
It's a great question, and we encourage family conferences because there's so much involved, and you want to make sure everybody's on the same page. I find though some parents, some families are uncomfortable to do that because they're planning for their child, and then they're reaching out to family members and they're having a hard time, feeling very awkward how to open a topic. You know, if you're planning to give my child money, this is what we're going to do.
I guess that could be
and if you don't have that type of relationship, it could feel out of the blue to that family member.
Sure.
But we really encourage that if everyone's on the same page, it really would be nice to put everything in that one trust. But have we had situations where they have different trusts? Absolutely. The reason could be who's going to manage it. Maybe they prefer a different type of people to manage the funds for them, or how much they want to put in. They would like to leave that private. They don't really want to keep letting other people know how much is going to be put in there for whatever reason. So there's different reasons why you might want separate trusts, and there's no bad reason really, to be quite honest.
There's no right or wrong way.
But being aware, Joanne and Marty, that's the hard part, right? Because sometimes people aren't aware and they put a beneficiary as the child, and there's things that we can do to fix it, but it's not easy. It's not easy.
Really what this comes down to is using a professional. I hate to say it, but, there's good lawyers, great lawyers, and maybe lawyers that are not informed, okay? Yours is a specialty, okay? And I mean, if I was going to buy a home and sell a home, maybe the vast majority of attorneys will handle that. When it comes to something like this, you're swimming in it, and you have a child, so you could be very sympathetic and understanding and helpful to families that have this issue. So, I mean, I know you'd probably back me up on that, but I really do believe you need to seek professional advice.
And the reason is that in anything you do, just like in doctors, you want to go to the cardiologist, you want to go to the neurosurgeon, you don't want to go to the general family doctor to treat certain situations because you want to make sure they're up to date. And we've always told families, if this is an issue, make sure go to a professional who does quite a number of these, at least 1 or 2 a year. You want more than that. We do several hundred a year, and you really want someone who's up to date with the laws because they're very tricky, they're very particular. So you need a firm that's just up to date with all of that. That's all.
And I guess requirements vary by state.
Yes, because Medicaid and SSI, those laws, there's certain requirements that are acceptable in certain states. So you do want to make sure that you have an attorney who's very well versed of their state's law, because again, a trust in New Jersey, it could very well work in Texas for the most part, but you want to confirm it. There's certain nuances that might need amending, that need some modification to make it work.
So if you can you tell our viewers about some of the costs involved? Because we try to get to that. I mean, nothing's for nothing out there, and you're a professional. Can you just give us an idea?
Sure, absolutely.
Is there a free consult to start, and
absolutely.
then, retainer?
We're always happy to meet with families, and every family situation is so unique. It's very, very challenging to provide any type of ballpark because some families may not need everything because of what they probably started, and some families may need a lot more help. But we're always happy anybody who would like to call us, we're happy to chat with them, go over what their options are, and we call it a peace of mind session, because our goal is that you walk out of that meeting and you get that feeling. The things that you've been waking up at night, the things that are giving you a stomach ache, I want to make sure I answer those questions. And one of the things that we always espouse is that we're there for our families. We want to make sure that they get their answer. We never want them to hesitate to call us and to ask these questions, because the worst situation is that they felt that they're bothering someone, or they feel like it's a nonsense question. Every question means a lot to our families.
And in the end, I would say that every parent wants the best for their child, so they don't want to make a mistake. And I think
Absolutely.
that that's really important.
Absolutely,
So that's
because
where
the
that expertise comes in.
and the
to become
consequences are
invaluable.
huge. You're absolutely right, Joanne. You just want to make sure you have the right plan in place with the right people. That's all.
Are there any, cases that you could point out, without naming names, of course, that you feel most proud of, where you were able to help people out of a spot, and maybe they were able to get a benefit that otherwise wouldn't, or perhaps they got into housing, because they can't handle the child. Some things are beyond our ability.
Well, one of the things that we're always happy to help, and unfortunately, if we are with a family that has had a divorce, a family dissolution, then we have to talk about child support. So in the big picture, they are now looking at monies that are supposed to go to the child that typically would disqualify them from benefits. Believe it or not, child support is considered income to the child, and that could throw them off their benefits. So we've had families, and I remember particularly, we're helping a family, we're creating a plan, and she had mentioned, she goes, I really wish we can get the benefits, but because of child support, we're not able to. And we had educated them saying, no, there is a tool out there, a trust that we can create that will now help your child not only get child support, but get the benefits they deserve. And it was so satisfying. For 5 years, they went without, and that is not right. And so one of the things we'd love to do is also educate our family law members. A lot of the attorneys we deal with are so well versed, they know. But we want to also make sure we understand that there's opportunities out there to help to do even more for our families. So that one I was really happy about.
Do things change when a child achieves a certain age?
Yes,
Okay.
Especially in school, right? So a lot of our loved ones, we know in a typical situation, once we reach 18, there's graduation. But for a loved one who is disabled or special needs, there is an opportunity to stay in school a little longer, till 21 or so. So that's great. And because of that, we want to make sure they have things placed in place ahead of time, because there's a time clock.
Well, listen, we've reached that time, which is
You gotta
horrible,
cut it off.
because we have a lot of things we'd like to talk to Christine about.
And I'm sure our viewers do.
So Christine, listen, can you give our viewers your contact information, a phone number, an email address, and go ahead.
Absolutely, absolutely. So if you'd like to reach us, and we have offices in Ocean County, Monmouth County, and in New York City, our phone number is 732-281-0060, or you can find us on the web, matuslaw.com, and has all our other information there. We'd love to help and chat.
Absolutely. I can be reached at Ameriprise Financial at 856-797-0200, extension 128.
And Martin at 732-905-8100, AFM Investments. We would just like to thank you all for joining us again on another segment of It's Your Money, and we'll see you next time.
We will. Thank you.